Lynne Rossetto Kasper is going to do us a magnificent roast leg of lamb in the Renaissance manner, whatever that is.
Hi, it's Lynne Rossetto Kasper from the Splendid table. I'm trying not to get teary-eyed because on the weekend of December 29th, I'm going to be doing my last show on the Splendid table. It's been 22 years of us talking to each other. Most wonderful time of the year.
It's a little early for holiday songs, isn't it?
Well, it's about Thanksgiving. And it's my all-time favorite holiday. And the reason it's my all-time favorite holiday is, guess what? Turkey Confidential. It is my favorite thing to do, and this year you're going to be doing it with me.
I know, you wrote me in.
Yes, I did. You have about 3 lines, but you're going to love it. You're really going to love it. You're going to be taking over next year.
Well, this year, we'll get to do it together.
Right, exactly.
So I'll be swimming with a safety net.
Yes.
Do you swim with a safety net?
Whatever you do, it's going to be very weird.
Net.
It's going to be very weird to swim with a safety net, but you can have one if you want.
I am Francis Lamb, and today I want to share with you the recipe that made me a minor internet star. A very minor internet star, like not even cute cat video star, but like, okay, this is pretty much all I have in life, so give it to me.
The book's greater when you just stop and look at it with fresh eyes. It's like a miracle machine. It does the work of 100 small knives all at once.
After school, I help out, so that's why we can bone a chicken in 18 seconds.
Yeah, I think it's be supportive of everybody's guacamole. You know what I mean?
How do you celebrate the holidays?
Aggressively and excessively.
When I first started collecting recipes, which was in 1956, when I was 20 years old.
There's nothing in the world like it. Nothing.
I might upset you right now, because I'm going to tell you that I don't even own a wok.
And now it is my pleasure to welcome to the stage the incredibly talented host of the Splendid Table, Francis Lamb.
Oh, that sounded awesome. Thank you. Is this what it's like to be a K-pop demon hunter? That's what I always wanted to know. And by always, I mean since the last 3 months, because it's the only piece of content that appears in my home. Well, thank you so much for that incredibly warm welcome, and hello, St. Paul. It is great to be home again. If you are a regular listener of our show, you have probably heard us take our show on the road a whole bunch of times this year to celebrate our 30th anniversary. We have been in Indianapolis, in LA, in Iowa City, in Seattle, and Tampa, but we saved the best for last. That's right, you can clap for yourselves, don't be so Minnesotan. And you should clap for yourselves because the Twin Cities are the hands that rocked our cradle when 30 years ago, an enterprising producer named Sally Swift teamed up with a cooking teacher and a cookbook author named, come on, you know her name, let's all say it together, Lynne Rossetto Kasper. And so Sally and Lynne embarked on this daring and frankly bizarre gambit, a radio show about food, which in 1995, I'm sure people was like, is that like Dancing About Architecture? But you all got it. And you started listening, and you've kept listening, and you have kept us going. And now 30 years later, I get to sit in this seat before you at the Fitz, and I could not be more proud to be a part of this. So thank you so much. I'm also so happy to be here in the Twin Cities, not just because we started here, but because this really is one of the great food cities of the world, I would say. And it really seems that like every time I come here, I have some incredibly delicious meal that like shows me something I never knew about food before. I was actually in town a couple of weeks ago, and I got to have back-to-back meals at Vinay and then at Hmong Village the next day. And it was the most incredible crash course in Hmong cuisine that you can have, I mean, probably literally anywhere in the world. So that was amazing. I get to go to Diane's place tomorrow too, so like. And last night I had this fabulous dinner at Myriel. It was, yeah, all about these incredible Minnesota ingredients, even though it's 13 degrees outside. And I remember my first sambusa from Afro Deli. I remember my first Ann Kim pizza, my first smoked bison ribeye at Awamni, my first nixta tortilla. Like, I hope you all know how good you have it here. I really do. But also, I think it's so important, like, as we do these shows around the country, like, we want to focus in on, like, what makes each city special, right? And, like, not every city can claim to be the greatest food city of their state or of the country or whatever, but every place is special, right? Every place tells its own story. And, it's not just a happenstance of great restaurants. Everything has to come together for it, right? It's got to be climate, culture, economy, a populace, great people. If you're interested, there's this absolutely phenomenal essay called What is Northern Food by Steve Hoffman that talks about why this food place is so amazing. You should Google it up and read it. But our show today is going to be a just scratch the surface look at what makes the food here so special with some of the very special people who make it so. So I am super excited to get into it with our guests. But before we start, I have a couple more things I have to say. I want to say a deep thank you to our sponsors tonight. We were presented this evening by Castle Building and Remodeling with additional underwriting support from CityCast Twin Cities. And I also want to tell you that although you're at a show, think of this not as being at a show. Think of this as being at a taping, a live taping, which means you're going to see us make radio just like we do in the studio, warts and all. You'll probably hear me flub a line. A guest might say something and think, I think I'd rather say that a different way, and we'll pause and we'll start over. You might see some mics getting adjusted. It's all part of the fun. It's you getting to see behind the curtain of how we actually make this show week in and week out. And with that, we're gonna get rolling. So Our first two guests tonight are two chefs I thought would be an interesting pairing because one comes from one of the most recent communities to arrive in the Twin Cities and the other from the very first people who were here. Jamal Hashi is a chef who was born in Somalia and raised in East Africa and in the US, has opened restaurants here in Minnesota, in New York, and is currently opening a restaurant in Nairobi. He flew back last night for this. He's a passionate storyteller and cultural bridge builder. And Sherman is, we will be here all night if I read off all of his accomplishments, but he is the chef and co-owner of a Wamni restaurant, the nonprofit Natives, and the Indigenous Food Lab. He's a 3-time James Beard Award winner, a Time 100 honoree, and his latest book is the magnificent Turtle Island, Foods and Traditions of the Indigenous People of North America. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sherman and Jamal Hashi. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So I told everyone, Jamal, that you literally flew home from Kenya yesterday.
Sure did.
Yeah.
Sure did.
And you're flying away to like Europe like tomorrow or something. So we've got you for like 20 minutes. Thank you so much. And Sean, you are in the middle of your book tour. You're at home on a short break before going out to spread the good word about your book. Let me start by asking you both a question, which is, you travel a lot. When you're away, what do you crave when you come back home?
For me personally, the people from Minnesota. This is my home, so I love coming home. I love actually having a home-cooked meal. I love hanging out with my partner Mecca, and I love just being here.
Right on. Well, Sean, let me start with you, because while we'll be talking about the amazing food of the Twin Cities and of Minnesota, it makes sense to start with the first foods that were here. So you've written this book. I've read it 6 times.
He's the editor.
Yeah, quite literally, I read it 6 times. It just got better and better every time. It was amazing. But you talk about, so one of the things that's beautiful about this book is like you have so much knowledge of indigenous food and indigenous food ways and culture and traditions, but you bring forth so many people that have taught you about them, so many people that you've met over your journeys and the years that you've really studied this subject. Tell us about some of the indigenous knowledge keepers of this place and what they've taught you, what they've shown you, the traditions that they uphold.
I think it's been really amazing because like when I first started the journey of just realizing the complete absence of native foods out there, and just there just wasn't really an education about what native foods were in general, and even coming from a reservation system, where I was surrounded by indigenous community and family, and it just wasn't there. So when I started this journey, I really started looking for people who had a large knowledge of plants, and I looked for people who were seed keepers and people who were still carrying some of the seed stories, and I feel lucky that I was able to work with Dream Wild Health early on as a board member, who's that group is a nonprofit just a little north of here in the cities. They do a lot of programming for youth, and they teach people about kind of indigenous seeds, and they bring indigenous youth from the city up to the farm throughout the summertime, and it's just been an amazing program. And it was really cool to connect with more and more seed keepers across the country. And so for me, like plants carry so much knowledge and plants carry so much of that tradition and that culture through them. And for me, it was just finding a lot of those people all over the state, people that had been celebrating wild rice harvests and protecting those waters. People like Winona LeDuc, who became a really close friend. And just being able to lean on a lot of people who had been here generations, doing this work before me, and just as I was trying to open up more doors, so but it is a journey of a community, of a network. It's not about one person. This work was never about myself. I was helped along by many people along my journey, and I feel like the success that has come through some of this work was because of all of that, because of everybody helping out.
Yeah. You mentioned wild rice. You talk about seeds and the sort of the knowledge of plants and the knowledge embodied in plants. But wild rice, I think a lot of us know wild rice is a very particularly important food in this place. But I didn't think I had any real idea of it until I started, the first time I read your book, that a lot of things about it I didn't know. That it's Minnesota wild rice is very different than the long black rice that I've always called wild rice that I saw in the grocery store. And actually I was talking to Yia the other day when I was here, and he said he's been on a boat, with traditional wild rice harvesters, and he was like, dude, you have no idea how hard it is. Bro, it's so hard.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. There's a lot of bugs.
Yeah. But tell us about wild rice and true wild rice, and why it's different and how it's different than cultivated rice, and why it's important.
I feel like here in Minnesota, most of us have an idea of what true wild rice from our Great Lakes look like, because, there's 14,000-ish lakes around Minnesota. I don't know the exact number, but it's something so unique. And if you look at it on a global scale, we produce so much of this really beautiful grain comparatively of what's out there, and we should be very proud of that. And for indigenous communities who are so deeply connected to this wild rice, it's just really important to hear their stories, to hear why this particular piece is so important to their traditions, to their values, to their cultures, because it's something that continues to be here, and it's built on so much of those familial stories. And so I think you see that deep connection, and just having true wild rice on the menu is so important, and not just blindly buying it from a Cisco or something like that, not to call out a big box truck, but I think it's important that we try to source wild rice from Minnesota, because it's so unique and so special and so beautiful, and we should really be protecting those waters where it grows in, because we've already lost a lot. And I think it's really important to understand why there are water protectors out there trying to keep big oil out of our wild rice beds.
I actually don't know about it. Say more about that. What is Big Oil doing?
They're always trying to push through to get these pipelines kind of built across a lot of these really delicate ecosystems, with the massive potential for damage, because it's not a matter of if those pipelines leak, but when and how much damage they'll leave behind. And and they're cutting through a lot of treaty areas, and they're cutting through a lot of areas where indigenous communities have relied on some of these beautiful lakes for so long. And in some of our really special places, like we have the Boundary Waters area in northern Minnesota, which is so unique, and it's a constant battle, because we have, our government's very mercurial, as we know, and right now there's a big aggression of allowing a lot of these permits to go through and pushing them through, and for indigenous communities, we just continue to fight that battle.
Yeah, and so for us as consumers, do we support this? How do we support? Do we buy more wild rice? Do we cook more wild rice?
I think that we should be, and I think that we should be intentionally purchasing rice from indigenous producers where we can. I think that we should really understand the true importance of this particular food source that's right here in Minnesota, and why we should protect it for future generations, because if those pipelines, and when they leak, how much damage will they be? Will it be generations of people not having access to this really beautiful rice in some of these areas. So that's why it's really important for us to be very considerate about where our food dollars are going to support a lot of those producers.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And since this product is so different than, again, the supermarket cultivated wild rice,
give us one way to prepare it that you especially love, that you feel like really highlights it.
I think there's so many ways to prepare it because we pop it just like popping grains, like sorghum or something like that. Just dry toasting it, kind of puffs up a little bit, and you can eat it just like a crunchy snack right there. You can powder that out into a nice powder to do like fish fries or something, whatever you want to with it. You can put it in other recipes like desserts or cookies. We've made crackers with it, and it's so like the true wild rice is so tender, and it's so delicate, and it doesn't need to cook as long as that black wild rice you find in the grocery stores, and it's just got so much more aroma and flavor. And sometimes just cooking it very simple, because sometimes at Awamini we've literally had just wild rice with no seasoning, just so people could experience how beautiful it is just by itself.
Yeah, it's such a cool, like, grassy aroma. It's really, really beautiful and like delicate. You're such a hometown hero here. You didn't personally grow up here.
No.
Although your family traces back here. But I was thinking about this the other day because it's sort of, to me, I had this sense, and I don't know if this is true, I don't want to assume this, so let me ask you this, but it seems to me that most of what you know about the indigenous foods of this particular place, of Minnesota, are foods that you chose to learn about, you chose to study, right? And so my question is, has that act of active seeking and active learning made you feel personally more anchored to this place?
Well, I mean, this has been my home since my early mid-20s, so I've been here, and I'm only 27 now, so it hasn't been teasing.
Still trying to find your way around.
But no, I've been here for quite a long time, and the more when I kind of had my epiphany of moving forward with indigenous foods, realizing the complete absence of native foods out there with no restaurants and barely any information in cookbooks and things like that, it forced me also on a path to understand the history of where we happen to be, and why there were no Native American restaurants across America, and so for my Dakota family that comes from these regions who were kicked out of Minnesota in 1863 through the Dakota Expulsion Act, which made it illegal to be Dakota in Minnesota, and they were forced into what's Crow Creek Reservation, where my grandmother and some of my family came from out that way in South Dakota. And we've lived through a lot of these aggressions with the government forcibly removing us, and because they had the Dakota and Expulsion Acts in the same year of 1863, again making it illegal to be Dakota. And I don't think those have actually gone off the books. I think it's actually still illegal to be Dakota on the books in Minnesota.
That was a magical fairy trying to change the law. That was the fairy dust being sprinkled. It's like, we'll get this taken care of just a few blocks over there.
And the food does really help us. The food really helps connect us, because I see food as such a powerful language that connects so many people across the world. And by pushing through with this kind of decolonized approach of pushing back against the values of colonization and aggressions that happen to communities because of racism and because of all these things, is that it brings us closer together, and we can stand with each other.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with that. It's nurturing, what we do.
Yeah. Well, Jamal, let me turn to you then. We'll go from the first people who lived here to, again, a community, one of the most recent arrived communities here in the Twin Cities. I want to start with your own story. When did you come to Minnesota, and what were your first impressions of it? Do you remember?
My family has been here for, I think we moved here in 95, and it was very cold.
You came here for the Splendid Table. You heard this radio show was...
Absolutely. And I think that first, there was about 30 families that were living here prior to us, my family, relocating here. And we were looking for a sense of community. And, what we experienced in Minnesota was welcoming and warmth, and we stayed. We loved everything about it, except the cold. But we come from nomad background, so we adjust to that quickly, and layer up. And I remember when we first got here, there was the family that came here before us were teaching us some of the long underwears and things to wear, so you don't freeze in Minnesota. And we were lucky and privileged to be here that early. And we're still here.
Right on. I have to ask you this too, in terms of the food, where you're like, where's the seasoning?
I think, I was raised on a pastoral diet, and what that meant is, our food was very simple back home and consists of meat, milk, grain, and fermented flavors. And, we were able to adjust to, those here that came before us. And shops we found were, there was Indian shops and that were able to find the spices that were, were able to make the dishes that were necessary in our culture. But also, as one of the first families to open a restaurant in the Twin Cities, we also had to navigate making menus. So I made the first Somali-American menu. And so translating the recipes and being able to, tell the same story that we were growing up with. And that was quite a work for us.
Yeah. Well, actually, so for a lot of listeners, people in this room, again, like there's this vibrant Somali-American community here and may have come and enjoyed Somali food over time.
Absolutely.
But probably for a lot of listeners, may not have the first idea of what Somali food is like even. How would you describe the cuisine?
First of all, if you haven't had Somali food, what are you waiting for? There's a lot of history attached to the cuisine itself. Somalia was an ancient trade route as well, and so you have a lot of different spices. The rice is super fragrant. It is, I'm thinking about, as my brother Sean here was talking about, the local rice found here, the wild rice. How can I be able to use that rice to be telling the same story? Because we always try to use the food from the land as well. And it is, it's very fragrant. It has a combination of different spices, ghee, and etc. And, it's accompanied by either, different sort of meats. And it tells a story of its own as well. Yeah. And it's very different from any rice you've ever had, for sure. And, anyone that has ever had Somali rice will attest to that. And, if you've had sambusa, clap. Sambusa is another, example of foods that's found home in Minnesota. It's becoming the, what I like to say, the new lefse. And, I'm happy to be able to share that story and be able to introduce sambusas in schools. Today you can find in all the local schools, whether it's in Minneapolis Public Schools, St. Paul Public Schools, and largely all of Minnesota right now. So I'm really happy to be part of that story. People like Hoya Sambusa who make, Hoya means mom. So when you visit Hoya Sambusa, you have moms literally making this by hand for the kids. It's not made by machines. Still has that love and kindness and, and intentional. So, and the kids love it. And it's good to see that story. And I think food is a beautiful way to tell stories and share. It has a way of connecting people and bringing us together. What we chefs do is we nurture people. We share a part of ourselves to tell that story. Yeah. And it's a beautiful journey that I've been on. I've been lucky enough to be on this journey and continue to be on.
Yeah. So I haven't had a lot of Somali food, but I've gotten to enjoy it a few times while here in town. And I love the sambusa, which is this often spiced meat stuffed pastry, crisp and delicate, and then you get that really aromatic filling. You have all these rice dishes. But there is a dish that I see on several of the menus around town, and I don't know if this is the traditional name for it, but what is chicken fantastic? Is that like an ancient recipe?
It's an ancient recipe that found itself in Minnesota. And this dish was born in Minnesota. And I'm very proud to be part of that journey as well, and translating Somali dishes and combining with Minnesota, and it's just like the snow. It's pretty white.
Just like the snow.
So, a lot of people expect when they eat Somali food to be super spicy and this is totally on a different realm, and it's using Somali spices, Somali seasoning, but also has herbs as well. It's a beautiful Minnesota dish, I'd say, Somali Minnesotan dish.
So it's chicken, often, well, chicken,
Correct.
fantastic is
Correct.
chicken, with the sort of Somali masala, like a spice blend.
Yep, the masala, and then it has cream, it has basil, rosemary, and thyme, which I also find. And it's very Minnesota.
And just doused in cream. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And East Africa, of course, is known for coffee. Right? It's the birthplace of coffee.
Correct.
But I was interested to see that Somalia also has a very important tea culture as well.
Very much.
Tell us about that.
The tea culture in Somali is, if you have ever been to a Somali restaurant or Somali home, you know, the first thing you're always greeted with is hot Somali tea. It's part of the customary and hospitality, the warmth. And if you haven't experienced that, I want you to go out of your way and experience that. Dine with a Somali, eat with a Somali, get to know, you know, a Somali, and I think your perception will change for sure. And especially today with the narratives, I think that, you know, it will definitely bring us together.
Yeah, I mean, in the current moment we're in, where there is a lot of xenophobia,
correct,
and particularly directed towards the Somali-American community here, from various corners of our society and our body politic, it's so meaningful and so touching to hear you talk about the hospitality that's
Very
inherent
much.
in the culture, the sense of welcome.
Absolutely.
And earlier when you and I were talking, you said, you know, we're a nomadic people. And so when you're a nomadic people, if you find other people, it's incumbent upon them to welcome you in and support you.
Correct. That was sort of like the, you know, rule of the land. It's like when you have strangers come to your house, you open your door, offer food, sometimes giving your own bed. And it's part of our customary, how we were raised. And until today, you experience that. And, you know, if you go knock on any Somali person's door, any neighbor you have, and it's customary for them to welcome you. And tea is the first thing you'll receive. And a beautiful conversation. You know, where you're from, what's going on, and so on and so on. But I think that food is that medium that brings us together.
Yeah.
And, and we definitely, you know, there's a lot of space for that right now.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, Jamal Hashi. Sean Sherman. And right behind me, we have a fantastic treat for you, a very special musical guest, longtime friend and collaborator with NPR and American Public Media, singer, songwriter, composer, and saxophonist, Lamar.
Now you see me, now you see me in the light. Now you're leaving, and I won't put up a fight. Leave 'em wanting, leave 'em always wanting more. Leave 'em talking, leave it all out on the floor. Honey, that's alright. Honey, that's alright. Honey, that's alright. Honey, that's alright. An illusion, just a fact held in my hand. A delusion, promised in the promised land. Is this heaven? Or is heaven here on earth? When you left him, was it more than he deserved? Honey, I don't know. Honey, I don't know. Honey, that's alright. Honey, that's alright. When I wake up, did I ever close my eyes? When we break up, did we break the mold this time? All these questions lead only to questions more. I feel threatened. Leave my shoes on at your door. I keep walking, hoping to outpace myself. I keep talking, but my words say something else. Honey, I don't know. Honey, I don't know. Honey, that's alright. Honey, that's alright. Sign up, put your name upon the line. Did you find that? Did you find that peace of mind? Are you sleeping? Sleeping in somebody's bed? Do they echo? All my words inside of your head. Honey, I don't know. Honey, I don't know. Don't know, honey, I don't know. Don't know, honey, I don't know. Honey, I don't know, honey, I don't know. Honey, I don't know. Don't know, honey, I don't know. Don't know, honey, I don't know. Honey, I don't know, honey, I don't know. Honey, I don't know. Don't know, honey, I don't know. Don't know, honey, I don't know. Honey, I don't know, honey, I don't know. Honey, I don't know. Don't know, honey, I don't know, honey.
Oh, that's great. I didn't even expect to get more applause just for like leaving and coming back. I'll see it. Highly recommend having an entire theater full of people applause for you just for existing. It's really, I've never felt more validated. Wow, he walked back on stage. Amazing. Okay, thank you. Wasn't that beautiful? We have more songs, more music from Lamar through the evening, so I'm looking forward to that. Before our next segment, it's time to go to segment 2. There is, again, a little bit of a older, newer thing going on, in that one of our next guests draws on this area's Scandinavian cultural heritage to help create the experience at her restaurant, and the other draws on her Hmong heritage. But for the next conversation, I want to get a bit into how these chefs are more than just emblems of their cultures, but they're people who are exploring what those cultures mean for themselves. Karyn Tomlinson is the chef of Myriel restaurant here in beautiful St. Paul. And was just named the best chef in the Midwest at the James Beard Awards this year. And Diane Moua is the chef of Diane's Place after more than a decade of being lauded as the best pastry chef in town. She's got more than just sugar up her sleeve, and Diane's Place was named this year by Food & Wine magazine as their restaurant of the year. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Karyn Tomlinson and Diane Moua. Well, hello, hello.
Hi. Hello.
Thank you for coming here. You know, it's funny because, thankfully you said yes to our invitation to be here months ago, but it wasn't until like yesterday where I realized, oh my God, these two women have something in common, which is they both started their careers in pastry before now owning their own restaurants. And which actually, I don't know if you know this, but that's actually a very unusual trajectory in the industry. But so I'm curious, is there a way in which you feel like being a pastry chef or like working in pastry trained your brain or trained yourself that you find especially useful now as a chef owner?
I think so. I feel like, how often do you see a chef revert to a pastry chef, right? But a pastry chef, it's like we get to work in the corner with a salad station, right? But then it's
we're
like
comfortable with loneliness.
Yeah, but you're doing something that not a lot of people can do, and it's more art to compose a dessert together, croissant. Like it's a little bit more. So I feel like it does benefit a lot, for me at least.
There's a lot of discipline involved in pastry. And also, that's, I think, where I really learned to pay attention to taste and texture. That's where I learned, I think, my sense of balance that applies also to savory cooking. But it's easy to kind of overlook if you just jump into savory cooking.
Oh, that's so interesting. Well, let me start with your food, Karyn, because I got to have this wonderful meal last night at your restaurant. And, we've been sort of talking about how food is of a place and representative of a place. And in some ways, at your restaurant, it's quite literal, right? In that yesterday when I got there, you casually told me, like, oh, yeah, I started my day by going out to a farm and picking up a couple of rams.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with the rams?
Well, they're now broken down, and we're going to use them on our tasting menu and for a couple of Yuletide dinners coming up. We'll use all of it.
Any secrets or any surprises that you can spoil for us as to how you're going to cook them?
How we prepare them? Well, we're actually starting a dish a little bit later this week, a braised lamb dish called boulette. It's like braised lamb that we pick and then form into meatballs. And then we're doing the racks of lamb on the tasting menu as well. Probably actually as we speak right now at Myriel. I'm playing hooky.
I'm not cooking it, but someone is.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm sure they're doing great.
Well, I'm sure they are doing great because the food was so delicious. But something I really noticed last night was how extremely unpretentious your food is, right? There was a bowl of beans with some pureed herbs in the broth, and that was a dish, beautiful dish. There was a second bowl of lentils, just beautifully cooked lentils with some celery leaf salad on top. There was like the most velvety squash soup and a waffle with some shredded duck. It's food that was so, again, delicious, but it was not food that looked at all like a chef's ego on a plate.
No.
And, there are elements that, like if you know, you know, right? I'm sure.
Right.
Like, there were, I feel like there were coriander seeds, fresh coriander seeds that were pickled almost like capers.
Yeah.
So, like, very intentional and very, in some ways, highly technical, but again, not like, look at me, look at me, look at me.
No tweezers happened with those coriander capers. Yeah.
I mean, they were very small.
Yeah.
Are you sure? I mean, you tweezed one of them on?
Yeah.
They were teeny. But it made me want to ask you, how would you describe your creative process? Like, what matters to you in your food?
Yeah, and it's cool because really the whole team is involved in this creative process too. We are really connected to, we start with our ingredients, what we have available to us from a particular farming community here in Minnesota. And we've kind of given ourselves, we keep adding limitations on ourselves. That's sort of, it seems counterintuitive when you're a bunch of creatives together, but for us that helps us to convey a really specific message. We're telling a story of a farming community and a story of what our land has to offer, all the amazing resources that we have here, both wild and cultivated. And so we go out to the farms once or twice a week, pick things up, and at the same time we're having dialogues with all of our farmers. We're foraging, we're doing all these things, and we build menus off of that. And we kind of we're not just constantly reinventing the wheel, we have kind of outlines of how we build our menus so that we can hit some bases. We always have some legumes on the a la carte menu. You saw 2 of them, but we can grow beans and legumes and grains really well here, and so we like to highlight those ingredients, and then we kind of work from there. We only use whole animals. We only buy whole animals directly from the farmers, so that's another kind of limitation that determines, we can't just have certain cuts of a steer. We have to use all of it, and so that means we're going to end up having braised meat at some point, or we're going to have use some for charcuterie. And so I think a lot of my creative process and my team's starts by those things. And then we really try to think about what is it that we love about these ingredients? How can we convey that in a compelling way to our guests?
Yeah. I mean, the thing with whole animals is so, again, if you're not in the thick of planning a menu or serving guests, it may not occur to a diner how complex that is, because you've bought a steer, you've bought a whole cow. You get 24 ribeyes out of that entire cow, and then you got a rest of the cow to deal with.
Right.
So it's
and
not
there's
just
a lot of rest of the cow too.
Yeah, and there's a lot of rest of the cow. So you really do have to be extremely resourceful and creative in how you're putting these dishes together. But tell me too about you said you want to tell the story of a farming community. As we've done this show, in different cities over this year, I've had lots of different conversations with both farmers and chefs. How even in a rural place, in an agricultural place, it can be very, very tricky, very difficult to connect a restaurant and a farm.
Absolutely.
It seems like, you just go to the farmer and you buy what they have. But it's sort of like the whole world has conspired against you to do that. So talk about the challenges of that and how you navigate that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of farmers aren't farming for farmers markets. A lot of farmers are they rely on larger contracts, and they're working with a system. They might grow beautiful organic beans, but then at the end of harvest, they're put into a semi truck and off it goes, and they have no idea, what ends up with those beans. And I think that's kind of basically there aren't immediate, easy points of contact to consumers that a lot of farmers in Minnesota, in the Midwest, have, unless they've set their business up for it, like a CSA farmer or something like that. And, so it's kind of takes a little bit of determination and creativity from both parties. I've kind of weaseled my way into this farming community, and now the whole team has, and now they're coming and eating up in the cities, and it's just, but we have to kind of meet each other halfway a little bit. Not literally, we go out there, but meet you in Delano, but. No,
I got some beans.
I actually have done some parking lot pickups from people who are kind enough to meet me one town over, but it really takes some creativity. It means that we have to talk with people who aren't used to selling. They don't have an order guide. We're not just like, I need 10 pounds of this. Oh, never mind, I don't need that anymore. Like, it doesn't work that way. They plan for it, we buy it, and not every year is good for everything. So we might have planned for something. They're like, you know what? The asparagus is hollow right now. Can't use it the way you're going to. And so it just requires a lot of communication. It requires some logistics and when and where we're picking things up and how that looks, we've even been weighing a lot of things for our farmers who aren't used to working with restaurants and helping them price it. But the results are, I think, invaluable. A lot of these farmers have maybe caught a glimpse of what it might be like to work with a smaller market, to work directly with consumers. It's given them ideas, it's given us ideas. It's been really cool. That was a long answer, I'm sorry.
No, I love it. The more you talk, the less I have to. I get paid the same either way. It's amazing. mind. Well, I was just saying, I heard of a chef the other day. I heard the other day about a chef who was being interviewed by someone, and the interviewer asked them one question, and they went off for 55 straight minutes, and I was like, easiest money ever. That sounds amazing.
Was it a great question, or were they just a big talker?
The way the person told me the story was, it sounded like they were doing a lot of processing in the moment.
What do you got, Diane?
Not 55 minutes.
I mean, for him, too, it's like, wow, I got paid to be here. I got paid to do therapy? This is amazing. Like, I don't have to... Everyone won out in that scenario. But I actually want to ask you this, though. Like, okay, farming is extremely challenging, right? There's no farmer who's like, yeah, this is pretty easy, dude. Extremely time-consuming, very stressful. To work... And to your point, like, I might grow several tons of crop X that gets picked up and gets put on a truck, and I get paid whatever for it, and like that's that crop. To add the layer of time, effort, consideration in their life to be like, this is what the asparagus looks like. Let me call Karyn up and tell her what that's like. You said you weaseled your way in, but. Really, how did you create, how did you get the sort of buy-in, and how did you convince them to add that layer of complexity to their lives for your 28-seat restaurant in St. Paul, Minnesota?
Well, I might be completely mistaken, but I don't think I actually had to convince any of them. What was cool, and I think this is true, when I've talked to a lot of farmers or anybody who's passionate about what they're doing, they were really excited that someone was curious about what they were growing and what they were doing and wanted to talk about new ideas. And I think as long as, I was willing to kind of understand where they were at and wasn't coming in hot saying, hey, you're a farmer, can you grow this for me? Not understanding their system at all.
Right.
As long as, there's that respect there, I think, and they just saw curiosity and respect in what they're doing. I think everybody we work with now has been excited to find ways to work with us. And, some of them have had health issues or things like that, and it's changed along the way, or we haven't been able to work together anymore. But it hasn't been because either of us decided, this is just too much work.
It's amazing.
I think it's been really validating for them and incredibly inspiring for us.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to sort of like one of the basic precepts of how to have relationships with people, right? People want to be seen. They want to have their work known and understood. Diane, I want to turn to you because I think most people would hear Karyn talk, or if they know the restaurant, they've been in the restaurant, they would describe it. This is a faulty term, but let's use it. They would call it farm to table, right? In the U.S., I don't think we often think of Asian food or Asian restaurants as being, quote, farm to table. But I remember the first time I went to Mungtown, and there were all these, there was all this beautiful produce, and I was going through the tables, and everyone's like, oh yeah, I grew this in my garden. Oh, this came from over there. And, we were talking about that a little bit yesterday, and you said, yeah, we're like Little Hmong on the prairie over here. But tell me about this particular tradition of farming and growing food in the community you grew up in.
My parents came here, and what they brought from Laos, Thailand here is farming. It's what they know. So my parents' goal was to always have a farm, and they do a really good job at it. And at Diane's place, I'm able to showcase their hard work. And not just that, I'm not just supporting my mom and dad, it's all the Hmong farmers, the farmers market. I mean, my boyfriend and I, every weekend, we're hauling stuff from the farmers market. But back in the day, that's all they know. That's how they made their money when you sell produce. So it's embedded in them. They know how to do it well.
And adapt, too.
Yeah, and adapt. I mean, we're in Minnesota.
I was going to say,
it's a little different.
It's such an incredibly different environment. The crops that would thrive there may or may not thrive here. Talk about that. Because you grew up working side by side with them, right?
Yes, and I hated it, but I enjoy it now. there's a lot of things, I wasn't born in Laos, but we have family down in South Carolina now that has land, and they have bamboo. We serve fresh bamboo, young bamboo at the restaurant. I grew up eating canned bamboo. So being able to have things that, when you go to the Asian market, you see like all the canned sections, but being able to have our family grow these things here in the U.S. is amazing. The veggies, like the certain cilantro that we use, macho cilantro, it's different from your flat cilantro. It's a little bit more sweeter, fragrant, and you can't find that at the grocery store. You have to go to Monctown, or you have to go to my parents grow it. But there's certain things that we have adapted. Like we still grow mustard green, but there are so many different varietals. At the restaurant we use jopa, which is a sweeter mustard green. So there's a lot of things that we've adapted. My parents go back to Laos, Thailand, they come back and they're like, oh, we haven't had this fruit, or we haven't had this veggie. And I'm like, what is it, But there's still a lot of herbs that we use here, like pak piu, culantro, again, like macho cilantro. There's a lot of things that it's still very prominent in the Hmong community that we use.
It's amazing because, the Hmong community is rich and vibrant here, but it's not widespread around the country, right? So if you want to have Hmong cuisine in the United States, like this is one of the places to do it. But I think of all these different like Asian communities around the country, and when they have restaurants, it's almost always everything is like has to be cheap, right? And so like, and there isn't an economy built for growing produce for flavor, growing for quality. It's always grown and marketed and sold for the lowest possible price. And so you go to these restaurants where the chefs may be incredibly skilled, but you're always going to be, I don't say held back, but you're always going to have a certain quality of ingredient that is, just not grown for quality. And it's amazing that you get to work with this product.
Last week was the last week my parents dropped off the last load of the veggies in their greenhouse. So we're still very fortunate that we're still able to use the fresh veggies. And so now that it's winter, we're getting a lot of produce from Hmong farmers in California that, they bring up. So we're still very fortunate.
Yeah, that's awesome. Your menu is, it's amazing. It's a combination of your whole life, seemingly, right? Like there is beautiful pastry that is, comes from your background and very refined European style, French style pastry. And then there's also very home style Hmong food, maybe presented or plated in a different way than you would at home. What are some of the dishes on the menu that just like make your heart sing when you put them on?
At brunch we have this bean thread noodle. Growing up, I remember going to any Hmong household, any gatherings, this bean thread noodles was one of the first noodles that all the aunties and grandmas, my parents the ladies knew how to make. Nowadays, all the ladies are so advanced with YouTube now that you don't even get this noodle anymore. But this bean thread noodle, I remember going to people's house and like
they stopped making it because they're making viral mac and
advanced pad
cheese.
thai now, a really better, different variation of like a better noodle now. But to me, this is like the old school noodle. Like this is what brings me back to Providence, Rhode Island when we went to any gatherings, and this is the noodles I saw. At dinner, we have our Hmong pulled pork, which is, back in the day, if you were wealthy, you had livestock and you had meat during the winter. Growing up, my grandma, my parents made it, and the house smelled like this pulled pork for days, and you don't want to eat anymore. So when I first put it on the menu, I remember telling the Hmong line cooks, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe we have this on the menu. And they all looked at me and they didn't understand, but we've never had this in a restaurant setting before. It takes hours to cook, and by the time you're done, you don't want to eat anymore, you smell like it. But being able to have it at Diane's place, being able to have it at Diane's place at dinner, where you can have friends or family having cocktail and having this dish is super special. Having Hmong hot sauce that you can have, when you go to anybody's house, Hmong house, this is the sauce that everyone serves you. So being able to serve this at the restaurant is pretty amazing.
Yeah. You are obviously so proud of Hmong cuisine, Hmong culture. But I know there are also elements of it, like everyone, like you know, there are some things you love about your culture and some things that you sort of bristle against. Tell us about why you have your wedding dress framed in your restaurant.
So I was married when I was really young, but as a Hmong daughter, you get one traditional wedding. And I was married for 18 years, but it was put up because my parents, you get married once and you get one traditional wedding, and your parents gift you these Hmong clothes once, right? And so it's really, really special. And when I had it framed and put up, we've had lots of Hmong women that have come through. Some would hug me, some that would cry. And it's like our place where we take photos now. But it's basically to showcase how far the Hmong daughters have come. You know, like we were raised to basically, you know, you don't step above your husband, or you never step above a man, you know? So it's basically to showcase that, yes, I did open this restaurant by myself, with no husband. My parents, I had family, but that Hmong women are very capable, that we are just as strong as our Hmong brothers, and that we are capable and we can do it. And that's why it's put up.
It's amazing. I remember hearing that, you know, your restaurant was an homage to Hmong women, to the dishes that you know, learned to cook when you were a young girl. And in my mind, that seemed like the obvious interpretation of what that means. But adding that layer to it, that incredibly complex and nuanced and empowered layer to it, I think is so meaningful. And all that, and an incredible croissant too.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Diane Moua, Karyn Tomlinson, and let's welcome back Lamar.
I'm getting hungry. Heaven is a place on earth. That's what they said to me. Heaven is a place you deserve. That's what they said to me. Heaven is a place on earth. That's what they said to me. Heaven is a place you deserve. That's what they said to me now. How'd I know? How'd I know? How'd I know? How'd I know? And love is just a winding road. That's what they said to me. Love is just a hand to hold. That's what they said to me now. Who'd I believe? Who'd I believe? Who'd I believe? Would I believe? In my mama, what she see in me? In my father, what he would believe. young, we knew everything. With no loose ends, we untied the strings. And when we were young, we could always run and never look back. Time waits for no one.
Waits for no one, waits for no one, waits for no one.
Hillary James on the cello. Fate is just a fickle friend. Let's begin again. And fate is just a fickle friend. Let's roll them dice again. Who'd I believe? Who'd I believe? Who'd I believe? Would I believe? And time is just a turning wheel. Honey, tell me how you feel. Time is two hands turning round, round, round till your body lets you down. Who'd I believe? Who'd I believe? Who'd I believe? Would I believe? In my mama, what she see in me? In my father, what he would believe? In my sister, would she walk away? And my brother, what did he have to say?
Love it. I could not be more excited to bring on our next two guests, not just because I admire them and love them so much, but because I get to talk to them every week and you never get to hear it. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Splendid Table's own technical director, Jennifer Lupke, and managing producer and co-founder, Sally Swift.
Where have you been? We've missed you.
They wanted so bad to not do this segment.
Jenny just calculated the amount of time that the chefs have taken, and she came back and she said, "We don't need to be on."
Yeah. I am so happy to have you here on stage because you keep throwing me out here, and now
you seem to like it, Francis.
Now you get to feel the hot glare of the lights and the glare of the crowd. But how does it feel? How does it feel to be here at 30 years in this room with these people who are cheering for you? What do you want to tell your fans?
Please, Jenny.
That it went like that?
Yeah, it did go like that. Yeah.
It's amazing.
We are so, we're done. I feel so incredibly lucky to have found a work that we've loved, and it's been so rich for us. And I encourage people to look for things that they love and do something about it.
Even if it's not what you thought you were going to love to begin with. You know, I was a big music fan, and I started out in radio as the world's worst rock and roll DJ.
What makes someone a terrible rock and roll DJ? Like, did you just play jazz the entire time?
It's hard. Really? You're not talking to anyone. They recommend that you bring a picture in the studio. so you can look at someone and talk to them, but it didn't work for me. It was not, and so when I would drive home, I would listen to NPR, and I'd think that would be the cool place to work. And, but I just thought, they're never going to hire me. And one day we were reading the Pioneer Press in the morning, and there was a small little ad, and it was for satellite engineer or something, so I just thought, I'm going to try it. And when I did the interview, I must have relaxed because somewhere in the middle of it I thought, they're never, ever going to hire me. And I think the question was something like, do you have any satellite experience? And I said, well, once a year I retune the D-Mod to get the Indy 500 for our AM station. And I just thought, oh God, they're not going to hire me. But he said, it counts. But the people that work here now, like, they are real engineers. The guys in my department, I'm just like a failed rock and roll DJ, and I could never get the job nowadays. But thank God I did. And then when I heard the Splendid Table, I started out doing overnights. I did my shifts when I first started here were 10 in the morning until 6 at night on Wednesday and Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday I was 10 at night till 6 in the morning. And then the Splendid Table started, and I was happening to training in on the uplink. And I would listen to it and I'd think, oh gosh, if I could do that. And
best thing that ever happened to me, let me tell you.
But what drew you? Like, what drew you to this like weird little cooking show?
It was something that was funny because I was listening to the Kitchen Chronicles that we used to play that would be in place of the news.
Right, so stations who don't take news in a broadcast need like a 5-minute hole filled, and Lynn would write this thing called Kitchen Chronicles that we'd do. It was a pain in the butt. I can't even tell you how hard it was to do.
But I would listen to Lynn talk about like pot roast or something, and I'd be like, wow.
Marshmallows.
I just love that,
If I could touch the hem of her garment.
Yeah, it's just, she spoke to me, and
on we went. And Jenny and I have worked together 28 years?
28 or 9. I think next year's 29.
Yeah, so long time. Small, little, tight group that's just managed to keep our head down and stay out of people's way, and we've managed to make it through, mostly intact. So it's been amazing.
I mean, I can't believe how freaking Midwestern you both are.
Oh, no.
Good God.
What do you mean?
It's the 30th anniversary of your goddamn show. Like,
what are you saying?
We just put our head down and we just gotta go to work. Come on.
That's
Puff your chest out a little. Sally Swift, let me ask you, 30 years ago, on this day, you were 5 days away from launching this weird show.
It was a weird show.
What were you thinking?
Well,
what were you feeling? Literally 30 years ago to the day, you're 5 days away from launching. What were you doing? How were you feeling? Take us back to that moment.
So we did a practice run, and we were live. Because it's cheaper to do, and it was during Car Talk, and live is fun, and there's lots of great things about it. But we did 5 local broadcasts on NPR, which was amazing. I mean, NPR just said, "Sure, go ahead, try it," and then we went national after like 6 weeks, and like we were still like couldn't get off the air on time. We were still figuring it out. I'm like, Lynn's talking. I'm like, no, stop. We were all, and we have signs. We're holding signs up to the window, and Lynn, who always dresses beautifully, and she's always wearing these big pieces of jewelry that you're hearing clunk, 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 clunk. Or like running and taking off her earrings, and trying to keep it all. It was. Lynne and I thought we were brilliant. We thought we really did think that we had a really good idea. Program directors, they didn't quite know what to do with us. They were mostly men, I will just say. Many of them were failed musicians.
We still need them to carry our show.
We love them, and they carry our show.
We love you.
It's all fine.
It just means you found the right calling.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
We want a 31st anniversary.
Yeah, it was, I mean, our hardest thing was we didn't, when I called Lynne, I cold called Lynne too, because I had always worked in restaurants. I'd always really loved food. It was really important to me. And I used to take a book a year and cook through it. That for my New Year's, I'd pick a book and I'd cook Mexican food for a year and work my way through a cookbook. And Lynne, this book came out, The Splendid Table, and it was so beautiful. I mean, I read it from cover to, I read the whole thing, which is no small feat. And it's about this region in Italy, and it's about the food. Her recipes were amazing, but the culture and the history and the science and all, that's what I really wanted to do. And Lynne and I met for lunch. She was very snotty because she had just won she was the first person to ever win both the James Beard Award and the International Association of Culinary Professional Award. And she had all these offers. And I just remember this moment when she looked at me, like she really looked at me, because I was telling her what I wanted to do and that I really wanted to do wasn't interested in a cooking show. I wanted to do the culture part, but talk about the food. And I just saw there was a moment when she just all of a sudden snapped, and she got it that we had the same thought and the same intention, and that was get out of our way. If we could agree, and we were working that hard, and it was easy in a lot of ways. And we were just idiots, the broadcast stuff, the professional, we were both all in over our heads. Lynne wasn't. Lynne's, so talented and was such a professional and has a beautiful sex kitten voice. She was wonderful to work with. It was amazing. It's amazing. All right, I'm proud of myself.
There you go.
All right, I'm saying it.
But like you said, program directors didn't know what to do with the show. It was, it's a struggle to start anything. And I'm sure the first, however long was rocky. Was there a moment where you started to feel like, I think this is going to work? Yeah, we went on the air. It was next week, 30 years ago. It was literally this time of year. And we, for some reason, 60 stations signed up for us, which was huge. We were just absolutely floored. Do you remember? You weren't around then. You weren't quite.
Still wishing I was
It was
with
really
you.
kind of oh my God, because they signed up because there was rumors that Car Talk was going to go away. So there was going to be some space in the schedule, and we kind of took it and ran with it.
There you go.
It was good. Yeah, it worked out. They were around forever, so
Well, you made your own space. You elbowed your way in.
Yeah, we elbowed our way in.
Jenny, I want to, when we record, I always love when, every once in a while,
when I ask you to say things a different way or over and over again.
No, say that again, but more naturally. No, but I love when I learn even just a little bit about how you hear, right? And I mean that both from an audio way, it's amazing. She'll be oh no, just tilt your head 45 degrees, 2 inches, and it'll sound totally different. I'm oh my God, you're totally right. It's that part I'm fascinated by. It's sort of so technical. But you always talk about yourself as being what do you say? You're the beer and bowling ears of our show.
Yeah.
And I don't think you don't need to sort of put the kibosh in this anymore, but when I would get super chef geeky about oh, this cool technique, and you're no one cares.
Poor Francis, man.
No, it's great. It's
We're
great.
a
It's
tough
great.
crowd.
I'm super into it. Everyone needs editors.
He and Lynne were both graciously accepted that from us.
But I want to know, like, when is it, like, there are some segments that are like, that's it. When do you know? When do you know when something really hit it for you?
There's so many that really hit. And I think that anybody would know. You know, the hard part is when it goes on too long for 59 minutes of broadcast, you know. That's the hard part.
You mean cutting things to, yeah.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
It's amazing how few, I mean, we've done like, we actually don't know how many shows we've done because I never really kept track. I mean, you know, we started numbering in like, I think 6 years in or something, but we really, I know it's crazy. You know, we have had so few misses. It's kind of astonishing. And I think that's the nature of what we talk about. I think food is this vehicle that we all eat. We all have feelings about it. People can be very passionate and themselves in a safe way about it. I think people feel really safe talking about food.
So what are some of your favorite stories that we've done? I'm curious. I want to hear this from both of you, actually.
From episodes? You know, it's funny because I was digging through a bunch of stuff, and it changes depending on my mood. I loved this interview we did last year about gas stations in the South, and it wasn't even a book. It was a collection of photographs of this journalist. She's like a political journalist. She travels around the South, but she started photographing gas stations and the people inside them who were running them, who were Hindi, from all over the world, right? Selling the food from the shell. And I loved that interview so much because it just reminded me, first of all, the South is a fascinating place. I mean, the number of populations that are there, I'm a Midwesterner, you know what I mean? It's just, the South is really kind of exotic to me. It is, it's just different. It's just a different thing. And I've just been thinking about that right now so much, and also because we're just so divided right now, and we're really not. You know, the truth of the matter is that's not how we live. And it was a beautiful little snapshot of that. I love that one of late.
And Jenny, what about you?
Well,
some of your favorites?
There was one that we were talking about the other day that
Stay on mic, Jenny.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's only my job. I'm not used to being the one to be on it. I can boss you around and tell you where to go on. There were so many, but there was one that kind of blew my mind that during one of the wars about the people who worked in the seed bank, protecting the seed bank from...
Vavilov.
Yeah. Protecting...
Nikolai Vavilov, he was a Russian botanist during Stalin's purges. And you tell the story.
The people who worked in the seed bank were guarding it because they understood how important that was. And they basically starved to death guarding this place, even though they could have gone in and ate some of the edible seeds to stay alive. But they knew how important it was for future generations to have this resource. And I think we were all listening to that interview, like, you know, I've had so many moments like that.
Yeah, well, you said this really beautiful thing the other day when we were trying to convince you that you should come on stage and talk. And you said, this show is how I've traveled the world.
Yeah, it's been my only travel. First, I would listen to Sally and Lynne and our former producer, Jennifer, talking about, how the light in Europe or Paris is so beautiful, but the beds there are uncomfortable. And I would be like, I think I flipped them off when they said that.
You definitely did. You definitely did.
But it was a huge eye roll, so I'll say it that way for radio. But no, I was raising children. I mean, I even missed our trip to Italy because my son was 15 months old, and then he was 2 years old, and I was like, I could have gone to Italy. But no, the show, I feel like it's taught me everything, and it's helped to learn about so many different cultures. And you just realize when you're listening to these people and over, it doesn't matter what continent you're talking about or country, somebody we're interviewing is always saying, yeah, my mom showed me how to do that. Or I always cooked that with my auntie. Or my dad and I used to cook that. And it makes you realize that everybody's pretty much the same everywhere. And it happens over and over and over.
So I think we have time for one more. I'm the one keeping time now. I can't believe this.
I love that.
I think we have time for one more. And aside from our very dear Erica Romero, who is at home with her beautiful new baby, this is pretty much the team that has made this show for 30 years, plus Jen Russell, who was with us for over 20 years. What do you want to say to each other?
Oh my God, I love you, Jenny Lubke.
I love you too.
There you go.
It was like sisters.
Oh my
I have
God.
3 sisters, and working with you and Jennifer and Lynn, I always was like,
it's been a beautiful
she's like that
thing.
sister, and she's like that sister.
Yeah, it's been a beautiful thing. Honestly, changed my life.
These sisters swear more, which is awesome.
I have one more thing I'm going to bring out. Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay. So I forgot her phone or something.
Where's mine?
I have a friend. We have a friend who's here.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I'm not going to get through this. I will. Thank you. Thank you. I vowed I was going to get through this without crying. I just want to say to all of you, I'm not going to do it. Really, I am so proud for each and every one of you, and you for supporting all of this, and for realizing that finally the way we were trying to explain what food is has been made so very clear by all of you. Thank you. And Francis, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jenny Lubke, Sally Swift, and say it with me, Lynne Rossetto Kasper. Thank you again to Castle Building and Remodeling for sponsoring tonight's event. Of course, thank you for coming here, for supporting us, and for supporting public media for all these years. And good night, everyone. We'll leave you with the beautiful music of Lamar.
I was driving real slow down a one-way street with the needle on empty, trying to make ends meet. I'm just trying to get home in one piece to my baby tonight. Got a little bit of grass in my front left pocket, case of beer in the trunk. You need a key to unlock it. I'm just trying to get home in one piece to my baby tonight. Isn't it strange how a minute might change your whole life? One wrong move and a man might turn out your lights. Flashing lights in the rear view, I'm getting pulled over. I'm so tired of being black and looking over my shoulder. I'm just trying to get home in one piece to my baby tonight. And he asks for my license, checks my registration, and I try to keep calm. I try to keep my cool weight, and I'm just flying to get home in one piece to my baby. Isn't it strange how a minute might change your whole life? One wrong move and a man might turn out your lights. Isn't it strange how a minute might change your whole life? One wrong move and a man might turn out your lights. I'm not trying to just get by. I'm not trying to just survive. I'm just trying to live my life. I'm just trying to live. This is Steve Bossman on guitar. Comes back to the car, it keeps a hand by your side. He says, son, you seem nervous, you got something to hide. Said, I'm just trying to get home in one piece to my baby tonight. And he stares for a moment, says, have a nice day, tips his hat with a smile as he's walking away. And I'm just flying to get home in one piece to my baby. Isn't it strange how a minute might change your whole life? One wrong move and a man might turn out your life. Isn't it strange how a minute might change your whole life? One wrong move and a man might turn out your life. Isn't it strange how a minute might change your whole life? One wrong move and a man might turn out your lights. Isn't it strange how a minute might change your whole life? One wrong move and a man might turn out your life. Isn't it strange how a minute might change your whole life? Thank you.